what this means in terms of climate justice at that international level. We as Caribbean states, as countries that have not been responsible for causing the crisis that we find ourselves in, are being put in a position where we are already paying dearly for the impacts of that crisis. And we heard from Bill about the scientific imperative for this case of climate justice. We understand that we are absolutely not on track to where we need to be in the context of bending that warming curve to limit warming to within 1.5 degrees Celsius. We are wildly off track. But what we also understand is even at 1.1 or some say 1.2 degrees of current warming, we are already experiencing extremely dangerous impacts. And this is deeply worrying. So we can understand the climate justice phenomenon then as a call for justice for the vulnerable, a call for those countries, those territories that are having to deal with this crisis that they did not cause to be supported by the international community, and perhaps more specifically by those most responsible or with the most capacity to assist. But it doesn't stop there. It goes beyond this. And this gets me into that key knowledge and the right to participation area of our work. There's also a case to be made for the way climate justice must function in the context of national actions within a particular territory. And what that speaks to, and I see many representatives of the youth here, we're very happy to have you here. And they've been running around giving a lot of support and a lot of energy to everything that we have been doing here at the COP, and we are deeply grateful to them for that. So climate justice in the context of what happens at the national level involves this question of public participation. It involves this question of the youth. It involves the question of how we deal with those who are marginalized in our societies. What is their level of knowledge and understanding about the impacts that they are experiencing on the front lines? And that is an area where we see there are many gaps. In many instances, it's not that those on the front lines do not know that something is happening, it's that they are not very well informed about what is causing it, and therefore what they can do to help in this situation. Not that it is at all their fault, but in order for people to feel empowered, they have to be given the knowledge to understand what is taking place. And so in the context of our work, and I can feel Bianca's eyes staring at me, so I know I'm drawing to the end of my 5 minutes. In the context of our work, we take a very, very broad conception to this idea of climate justice, underpinned in the first instance by the science, looking at how we can support regional governments in key areas, some of which are grossly understudied. So for example, this question around the implications of the implementation of the Paris Agreement for trade, for investment, for security. It is a very, very understudied area in the context of the Caribbean, and it's an area that we hope to be able to assist countries of the region to understand better. We are heading into an implementation mode of the Paris Agreement, and all of these issues need to be grappled with. It also involves looking at the climate justice phenomenon from a legal perspective, from the perspective of the creation of an enabling environment. So you will hear Carla and Mali coming to speak to you very soon a bit more about that work. But we are working apace to help the region to develop a model climate change legislation that can then be taken up by individual countries to allow them to have the enabling environment that they need, underpinned with all of the relevant principles, in particular around access to information and the right to participation, in order to be able to properly implement the Paris Agreement. Finally, we are also working to build the capacity of our fellows in the civil society of the region. It's only been, I think, in recent times that we've seen this major influx of people from our region attending these COPs, these sessions, understanding exactly what the conversations are that are taking place here, engaging with us in this game of acronyms that we play. And all of that needs to be expanded, all of that needs to be unpacked. So a large part of our work is also focused on education, helping people to understand what goes on here, helping people to understand what the issues are, what their governments have actually committed to, and situate themselves in relation to the global discussion. So with that, I'll leave you there and hand back over to Bianca. Thank you very much.